going, everybody? Wrench and Rides here. We're coming back with another how-to video. Today we're going to be working on a 2021 CB650R. We're going to be replacing the air filter. We're going in with one of these K&N washable air filters, pre-oiled. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. First thing you're going to want to do is throw your key in the slot to remove the rear seat. Once you get the key popped, your seat should pop right off. Lift it up and pull backwards. Next thing you're gonna have is these two Allen keys right here in the back side of the main seat. Go ahead and take a regular Allen key. I'm gonna be using a drill for all this, impact drill. Once you get both these Allen key bolts loose, go ahead and pop off the main seat. That's gonna give you access to this bottom bolt right here that holds on the rear of the tank. Next thing we're gonna do is come up here to the front side of the tank. There's gonna be two Allen key bolts on the top of this little shroud cover. Go ahead and take those bolts out. Once you got those bolts loose, make sure you grab them and put them in a secure spot off to the side. There should be a couple clips that hold this shroud on, so just get a hold of it. Like so. Right there's the two clips that hold it on. After you get those bolts out, they go in these rubber grommets up by the ignition. So go ahead and just pull straight up on that and it should come off. Next, you're gonna have two Allen key bolts, one on each side. There's one to pull this shroud off. Then there's gonna be another bolt on the opposite side to pull off the other shroud. So go ahead and remove those bolts and take off the shrouds. These are gonna be the same kind of style with the one clip on the bottom and a rubber grommet and some Velcro attaching to the tank. Then you'll have a clip, little insert piece on the back. Go ahead and just pull that out. Should slide forward and out, just like that. Same thing for the other side. Take your bolt out. Start pulling from the front. Just Velcro. And then the rubber grommet and pin. And then that clip on the back side. The next thing you want to do is go ahead and remove this cover around the ignition. There's going to be two push pin clips on either side. I'm just going to go ahead and use a flathead screwdriver. You can see them poking down through the bottom side. Just get your flathead on the bottom of it and they should push out pretty easily. Go ahead and pull those out. Once you remove those push pins, this piece should slide on out. Helps if you turn the bars to the side so you can slide this piece outside. Now that you got all of the shrouds removed around the bike, it's going to allow you access to these 10mm bolts. There's going to be one bolt that runs through the whole back side of the tank. And then you're going to have two 10mm bolts as well up in the front on either side of the tank. I'm going to try and just loosen the back. Get that one loose and then remove the front ones fully and try and prop the tank up rather than remove the whole thing. Once you get your bolts loose, go ahead and pull them out. There's going to be a spacer on the bolts as well that come out with it. On the right hand side of the bike, there's going to be this wire on the rear subframe that's held on with one of these reusable zip ties. That wire goes to your fuel pump, so be sure to loosen the zip tie up and just take it off. Now that you got that zip tie removed from the fuel pump wiring, make sure you leave this bolt in the back side with the nut loose. That'll allow you to pivot the tank up so you don't have to fully remove it. And you want to remove that zip tie so this fuel pump wiring does not get stressed out when you're lifting the tank up. And these other wires have enough room, enough clearance to have the tank propped up. So I just used a scrap piece of wood right up here onto the triple clamp in the bottom side of the tank. I just have it propped up to hold it. So now that your tank's propped up, it's going to allow you access to the air box. There's going to be 8 Phillips head screws wrapped around this air box that you're going to need to fully remove, as well as a vent tube that runs over top of the air box. You're going to want to take that off too. Another vent hose right here with a push clip, and also remove this plug from the top. To remove these clips, I'm just going to use some needle nose pliers. Grab the clips, pinch them, pull it up. Do that to both of your clips. Now that you got those off, you should be able to pull off these vent tubes. I'm going to use this door panel clip remove tool to get these hoses off, because sometimes they get stuck and they don't like to come off very easy. You can use one of these or a flathead screwdriver. I just feel this works a little better. Now that the vent hoses are off, there's going to be 2 clips you got to remove. One of them is just a black connector that runs to the top. The other one, you don't actually want to unplug it. You're just going to remove the holder that secures it to the air box. So on the black one, you'll just push down on the back side of the clip and it should pop off. And then on this red tab, you're going to pull the clip release out, and then this whole piece will slide off of the air box. And then that should be enough to get you out of the way. Now go ahead and remove your Phillips head screws. So I removed all my outside screws, and I tried to go and pull the air box up and realized there's actually a Phillips head down in this center hole. You can see that down there. There's a Phillips right down the center of the air box. So don't forget to remove that one as well. So none of my screwdrivers were long enough to go down into this center hole to get that Phillips head. So I just took the attachment off my drill with a 1/4 inch deep socket and an extension on my 1/4 inch ratchet. And you'll just drop it down in that hole and get on the Phillips head and loosen it up. Now that all my airbox screws are loose, I'm going to pull the outside ones out and set them off to the side, just so that I don't drop them down into the depths of the engine. Now you should be able to set that hose off to the side, and this airbox cover is going to come off. There is a clip tying some of this wiring to your airbox cover. I'm just going to leave it and work around it, lift the airbox up. But right there's your air filter and your intake inlets. So I'm going to pull these 2 Phillips head screws out. There's going to be one on either side of the filter. Now that both of those Phillips heads are removed, this air filter should just pull right on out like that. It looks like this one's pretty due for a new filter. I got about 5,500 miles on this bike. I've never done the filter on it. But you can see the restrictions on this stock air filter, which the new filter is a lot more free-flowing compared to having this wire mesh on here. So if you do end up going with one of these K&N air filters for this bike, here's the part number for it. It should go from 2019 and up on the CB650Rs. But if you're going with this K&N style filter, they will come pre-oiled, brand new. But if you ever do go, and when you go to service the bike and you're going to wash this filter, make sure that you reapply the air filter oil to it. The paper filters don't take any oil, but these K&N style filters do take air filter oil. So now we're just going to repeat the process of what we did to pull this air filter out. When you go to pull it in, this thicker side is going to go face down, and you make sure that your Phillips head holes are going to be facing the rear of the bike, because that's where the holes are on the intake. So just go ahead and slide this up. There she is, mounted in there. I got both the Phillips head screws in. Be careful not to drop anything down these intake ports. It's not a huge deal if you do, but you will need a magnet to get them back out, or some long needle nose pliers. But now we're good and secure with the air filter in there, so we can throw this airbox cover back on. And it will have a groove and lock in once you get it in the spot that it's supposed to be. So make sure that it's seated fully around the whole air filter housing. You can start reinstalling your Phillips head screws. Like I said before, just be careful not to drop them down into the bike, because you might have a hard time finding them again. When you go to tighten these back up, I just like to practice going in a cross pattern just to have an even torque on the air filter housing. Especially since it's plastic, it's better just so you don't have any issues of being tighter on one side than the other. But it's just a good practice on anything. If you have bolts going in a circle, to go in a cross pattern around whatever you're tightening back up. So let's go ahead and tighten these back up. So I ran all these bolts in with the drill before, just to get them ran in most of the way, and then I'm going to go back through with a Phillips head screwdriver and tighten them the rest of the way down, just to make sure that I don't over torque them, because it is a plastic air filter housing, so it's very easy to strip out the threads in your housing, and then you will not get a good seal on this air filter box, which is not going to be good because it can suck air in through wherever it's stripped out. It could suck air into your intake and possibly destroy the motor. So I've made sure all these Phillips head screws are secure all the way around the air box. Now it's time to throw on your vent hoses. You got the one on the back side and it sits in a groove on the top of the air box, and then there's going to be this other hose right here on the front of the air box. So slide that back on. Grab your needle nose pliers. Pinch the retainer clip with your needle nose and pull them back. Usually you can see the old groove where it was sitting before. I like to try and get it back in that same spot just to make sure it has a good seal, as well as the bottom one. Same thing, open it up, set it back in that groove, and just make sure that it's nice and tight on that hose so you don't have any leaks. Now we got these clips, the black one, throw it on that top plug, push it in, and this clip will lock in over that tab. You could just give it a nice little tug, make sure it's on there secure, because once you get everything bolted back up, you don't want that coming loose. And then on the red plug, lift it back up over its tab, and it should clip in as well. Make sure it's nice and tight, and throw the insulator cover back over. So now once you got everything back in place, just take a quick once over everything and make sure that you didn't forget any bolts, any hoses or clamps, and make sure they're all secure. All your plugins are plugged in, because once you drop this tank back down and put everything back together, it's a long process to get back to where you're at right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this board out and drop the tank back down. Now go ahead and grab your 10mm bolts with that spacer on it and run it through the front of that tank grommet. And then you're gonna go ahead and start this by hand if you are using electric tools, just to make sure that you don't cross thread it. Get it in at least a couple threads by hand, and then you can use your electric ratchet or impact to go ahead and run them in. So I got both these 10mm bolts ran in by hand, a couple threads. Now I'm going to use my electric ratchet and just get them snug. Now I'm going to come in with a standard 1/4" ratchet, just because you won't over torque it too bad with one of these. I don't know the exact torque specs on it, but we're going to go with this. Just get it nice and snug. It doesn't need to be super crazy. Now you can come back here to this rear one and tighten that back up. Remember, we didn't fully remove it, so it just has this nut on the other side. So I'm gonna go ahead and use this ratchet and a 10mm wrench on the other side to go ahead and snug this up. So we're gonna come back around to the right side of the bike. And if you remember this fuel pump wiring, we took the zip tie off of it. It is reusable if you didn't break it. If not, if it is broken, just go ahead and grab a regular zip tie. It'll work just as fine. When you are going to remove this though, this is the tab I was talking about. You pull it back and it lets you remove these zip ties and use them again. So go ahead and throw that back on your wiring and make sure that it's nice and tight. So now we got that fuel pump wiring secure. We can move on to the next step. Next, we're going to be installing the ignition shroud back on. Turn your handlebars all the way over to the left, and it should allow you to drop that right back in place. So once you're fully seated around this ignition, you should see your holes line up through the shroud into the metal brackets, and that should be on both sides. What you're going to want to do is grab your plastic clip. Make sure that this pin is pushed up all the way to the top. That allows this to squeeze together and go back in smoothly. I usually just hold the top of the pin like this and line it up with your hole. Push the base of the clip in first, and then your pin will be poking out still, and then just go ahead and push the clip in. Now you can pull your handlebars back to the other side and do the same thing to the left side. Push it in from the base. Once that's in, then push your pin in from the top, and that's going to secure your ignition shroud. This front tank guard, remember it has these two pins that need to go in first. Those are going to line up on these rubber grommets. There's one on both sides. So go ahead and slide this over the top. When you're going to install, you can look from here on the back side of it and just make sure that those are going to go inside those rubber grommets on both sides. It looks like we're lined up, so you can go ahead and push down on them. Once you're fully seated on both those rubber grommets, all your two bolt holes should line up for those Allen key bolts. Go ahead and grab your Allen key bolts. It'll be these two silver ones, the short silver ones. Start those up by hand also. Get them a couple threads in. Then you can go back through with your impact and run them in. These are not a high torque rating either, so just go ahead and snug them up. You don't want to go too tight and strip them out. I always like to go back through with the regular ratchet just to make sure that they're tightened down properly. That feels good right there. So we're going to go ahead and throw on these plastic fairings onto the side of the bike. Now remember, you have this little pin or clip that goes in to the side right there, which this piece is going to slide in this way. And then there's another tab that slides into the back side of the fairing into that hole. So you want to line that up and then line up this backside one into that groove. And just like so. You got it slid into the top. And it's kind of hard to see, but that one is in on the bottom. And then you're going to want, once you get that clipped up in the back, you got that pin, just like there was on this shroud up here, that goes into the side of the tank. It's a plastic pin into that rubber grommet. Line that up and then just pop it in. And then you have the Velcro on the tank. Line those square tabs up and just secure the Velcro. Just like that, we got the right side fairing on. Now we're gonna go ahead and grab the left side. This side is the same procedure as the right side. You got your plastic clip that goes into that groove, and then this plastic tab that goes into that hole back here on the back side. Then you'll come up here to the front. You got the plastic pin that goes into the rubber grommet on the side of the tank. Make sure you get that lined up and pop it in. And then line up your Velcro squares. Clip on your Velcro. Now we got both the side fairings on. Now that the fairings are clipped in, don't forget your Allen head screws They look like this, just a black Allen head screw, and they screw in right here into these holes on the side of the fairing. And there's gonna be one for each side. Only a couple more steps left to do. We're gonna go ahead and throw on the main seat. There's gonna be this plastic clip up here on the front that slides up underneath the tank on this front side. So you're gonna wanna kinda angle it and get that clip up underneath the gas tank. And then the back side should drop down. What you're gonna wanna do is line up your bolt holes in the back with the grommets that the Allen head bolts can run into those. So the last step for this job, you're gonna reinstall your rear seat. There's gonna be these two metal brackets that slide up underneath these little round stock hoops. And then you got your clip on the backside that runs through this hole. So same thing as the front seat, come in at kind of an angle. Make sure you're in the front. Line up your pin that drops through the back, and then just push down on the seat. And that locks it in just like that. Now we got everything reinstalled. It's time to start it up and see how it sounds. Well, she fired right on up. That should be good to go. Definitely has some more throttle response than it had before. I like that a lot more than the stock filter. If you guys like this video, make sure to go like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you want to see next. I do got quite a few vehicles at the house, so if you got anything that you really want to see get repaired or removed or anything of that sort, let me know. I appreciate you guys watching, and make sure to keep on wrenching. Have a good one.